Okay, how we doing? Rich Van Tassel with you. Today is Wednesday, August 30th, 2016. Continuing with our NFL division breakdowns, the previews. Starting in the NFC West today, we are looking at, of course, the first place team. And a note, all these teams play both the AFC and NFC West this season. So we're going to start with the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, I have them going 12-4. Could be a little better than that because I look at the early part of their schedule, and their schedule altogether is not very daunting to begin with. The beginning six and the last four are very favorable for this team, and the middle four games after that aren't too difficult. You look at the first six. The Broncos, of course, they're opening on the Thursday night game. The Broncos, with their quarterback situation, nowhere near as tough of a game as would have been expected. The 49ers, Vikings, now without Teddy Bridgewater, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, and the Saints before they play the Cardinals. Their last four games are the Chargers, the Redskins, the Falcons, and the Buccaneers. So favorable at the beginning and the end for the Panthers. The big story with this team is the loss of Greg Norman, obviously, in the secondary. A lot is going to be placed on Ben Wickery, a guy with good size, 6 feet, 200 pounds. Was a solid number two cornerback, and I expect him to take the next step. You look at their defense, though, it starts up the middle with Star Latuier. Their defensive tackle eats up a lot of blockers. He does a very good job getting pressure up the inside. That's big. They also have Charles Johnson on the outside who can get pressure. And then, of course, Luke Kuechly, the spectacular player, who you need to look at him to be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversations. On the offensive side of the ball, decent offensive line. I'd say actually better than average. Ryan Cahill at center, very good. Michael Orr at left tackle. His a lot of hype with Michael Orr, obviously the blind side and all that. I don't know if he's been necessarily a pro who's lived up to that hype, but he's certainly very solid. There's nothing wrong with Michael Orr. Just, of course, all the things coming into it. You have Kelvin Benjamin coming back, and Devin Funchess improved last year in the absence of Kelvin Benjamin. Benjamin, a guy who's 6'5", 245. Devin Funchess 6'4", 225. So you have some big wide receivers that make it difficult to defend, and you also have two solid tight ends in Ed Dixon and Greg Olsen. Of course, the defending MVP is Cam Newton coming into this year. I look for him to be just as solid as he was last season, and if not, even improve. Whether or not he'll win the MVP again, you can't go into that. He'll certainly be in consideration for it. You got to see how the season develops with the MVPs because some guys come out of nowhere. I look for the fact that this team lost the Super Bowl last year. They're hungry, and with that schedule, I look for them to coast to an easy victory in the NFC South this season at 12-4 for the Carolina Panthers. Next up, at 8-8, the Atlanta Falcons. Of course, we know the Falcons last year got off to that really good start. I think it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. They finished they finished 8-8 last year. I thought it was 9-7. They were like 6-1 or 6-2 at one point, and just really crumbled, or at least 5-0 or something like that, and really crumbled towards the end of last season. That was a team that got off to a good start, and kind of hid their deficiencies. It happens in the NFL. Some of these teams that you may look at, and I had the Falcons at 7-9 last year, so it's not like they didn't miss the performance I had. It was just they got off to a very hot start. But sometimes you're able to mask deficiencies. Sometimes teams get rolling. It just changes the dynamic of the season. Their schedule is also relatively favorable. Their first four: Buccaneers, at Raiders, at Saints, the Panthers, and the Broncos would be their fifth game. So they have a potential to go 3-2. After that, not anything that's terribly daunting. And the end of their schedule is the Rams, the 49ers, the Panthers, and the Saints. So they may be able to make noise, but I'm just not seeing it with this team. Matt Ryan is going to be looking to go to Julio Jones. We know that that's their offense. Devontae Freeman, who was very good as a rookie last year, will continue to, Tevin Coleman was very impressive, and Devontae Freeman also participated very well for the running backs, but it really comes down to Matt Ryan to Julio Jones. Julio Jones almost is unstoppable. Is he the best wide receiver in the league? I don't know. He's certainly right there, though. There are a few other guys who would be in the discussion. A.J. Green, Odell Beckham Jr., Antonio Brown, of course. I'd say it's really between Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, if you ask me. Offensive line, the addition of Alex Mack at center. He is also one of the better centers in the league. if not the best. I would certainly put him right there. He would probably be my pick for best center. So it's going to help the offensive line, but the tackles, Jake Matthews has been all right. Just not solid, though, on the offensive line, or not solid enough, I should say. Defensively, not much in their secondary. Deshaun Goldson, let's see what he's going to bring. Desmond Trufant, a guy who's 6 feet but only 190 pounds, so you need those bigger, taller, and also physical wide receivers. I don't know if he can really do that. Tyson Jackson, all right on the defensive line. Just their defense, nothing that's going to be good enough, I think, for this team to make the playoffs, and that's why I have the Atlanta Falcons at 8-8 this year. But the schedule could help them. But they may be, and you know what, this team next, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I'm going to do, could also be a team that gets second place. And really, when I look at the Buccaneers, you have that first game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons. I think that's going to be big for both of these teams, especially for Tampa Bay, because they are a younger team and how they can get started. You look at the Buccaneers, they open with the Falcons at Atlanta and at Arizona. You would have to say they're probably going to lose that Arizona game. So that first week of the season against the Falcons could really make or break their season. The thing with the Buccaneers is you look at their last 5 games, the Saints, the Cowboys, or excuse me, the Chargers, the Saints, the Cowboys, the Saints again, and the Panthers the last week of the season. Panthers may have everything locked up by that point. That could really help this team if they can stay competitive and possibly give them a chance to push for the playoffs. Offensively, I discussed it last year. They're starting to really develop a nice big three. Jameis Winston coming into his own, a guy who's a winner, and I expect him to continue to progress. Doug Martin, certainly sensational at the running back position. Last year, over 1,400 yards on less than 300 carries. That is spectacular, to be honest. Just under 5 yards per carry. Only had 6 touchdowns. He's going to have to do better than that. He can receive the ball as well. And then you have Mike Evans, the wide receiver, who is coming into his own as well. A big guy, 6'5", 231. A lot of big receivers. Of course, we talked about Benjamin and Devin Funchess for the Panthers. You have Julio Jones for the Atlanta Falcons and Mike Evans last year, over 1,200 yards. Only 3 touchdowns, though. You'd like to see more than that for a guy with that size, especially in the red zone. Defensively, I believe they're also very strong. You have Gerald McCoy, 7 years at defensive tackle. He can get pressure up the middle. They're good up front, that is. Also, Levante David, impressive at linebacker position. They added Brent Grimes at 33. He's been a solid cornerback, but at his age, we got to see what he has. Alteron Werner, a good player, always been solid in this league, so they've made improvements to their secondary, but is it going to be enough this year? Safeties, nothing really jumping out. Chris Conte, solid pro, but I don't know if their safeties are really necessarily going to be spectacular this season. Again, with Tampa Bay, I have them 7-9. It's going to be big, that first part of their schedule, especially the first week of their schedule, because if they can tread water, we saw their last 5 games. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7-9 in third place, and then the last place team may come as a surprise. Considering how much success they have had, I'm looking at the New Orleans Saints. I just think way too much has gone on with this team. I think they're really going to start to plummet now. They've been on the downslide their last couple years. Their early part of the schedule, looking at first 6 games. Actually, we'll just go to their first 8. The Raiders, at the Giants, Falcons, Chargers, Panthers, Chiefs, Seahawks, and 49ers. So certainly a few wins in there. You look at, or a few potential wins in there. You look at the 49ers, the Chargers. I mean, even the Giants, if they struggle out of the gate, but I'm not expecting that. But we saw that last year. So certainly there is a chance that they may be able to keep themselves competitive. Coming down the stretch, teams like the Buccaneers twice. Again, we talked about the Cardinals. The Rams, who I don't think are great, but I think are better than the Saints team. So that's why they've been progressively coming down. Drew Brees at 37 I'm hold Drew Brees in very high esteem, but there's just been so much placed on him. I don't know if he can really lift this team any more than they have been. Wide receivers, don't have Marcus Colston anymore. Nothing jumping out. Willie Snead, I guess, is going to be the best. I'm looking for the guy they got from Oklahoma. I don't even see him on here anymore. Uh, yeah, he doesn't even play. What the hell is that guy's name? Why is not coming to me right now? But they have a good center as well. Max Unger, they traded for him. Kenny Stills, yeah, he's not even on their team anymore. The guy from Oklahoma, wide receiver, certainly someone who I thought was coming into his own. And I just don't see much. Brandon Crooks is very fast. Outside of that, though, I'm not seeing it defensively. I don't see much with this team. Kenny Vaccaro is a good safety, don't get me wrong. Roman Harper, though, up there in age. Cortland Finnegan at 32, I'm not sure what he has, and their cornerbacks are not very impressive. Linebackers, Daniel Ellerby, all right, but that's about it. Not much on the defensive line, not much pass rush, and I'm just not seeing it with the Saints team this year. I think they're going to really start to come down. They did add Nick Fairley as well at defensive tackle, but it's just not there for the New Orleans Saints, and I think you're going to start to notice how much they've been downsliding of late and really see this team really come down. And then they start a rebuild there. Whether Drew Brees will be around for that, we'll have to see that in the future. All right, so that is your NFC South predictions. Carolina Panthers 12-4, Atlanta Falcons 8-8, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 7-9, and the New Orleans Saints coming in last at 6-10. Tomorrow we will bring you the AFC South, and we want to make a note. It was a Teddy Bridgewater torn ACL, so it has been confirmed. Big injury there, but we will come back with the AFC South tomorrow. Be sure to stay tuned for that and any other news that comes across the wire. Thank you.